Sometimes life can convey the impression that you are exhausted even when your inner strength remains intact. You wake up in the morning, look in the mirror, and see just tiredness. Advance decisions, postpone actions, avoid facing truths, and gradually begins to believe that weakness is your problem. But the reality is harder. What really paralyzes is not the lack of strength, but the fear of confronting something that could shake the whole known world. If you seek practical wisdom without exaggeration or shows, this is the right place. Here we just talk about what works, what was tested for time and proven by the experience. Fear is the invisible arrest that imprisons most people. He acts subtly, whispering, "Now it's not the time. You're not ready. You're very tired." And without realizing it, you agree, allowing him to take control of his destination. In ancient Jewish wisdom teaches that a person can have material wealth and yet be poor in essence, and no money in the world will be able to make it truly strong. But when someone discovers a purpose, a reason to exist, even the most violent storm can be faced. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived concentration camps, stated that the meaning is the source of resilience. People who lost everything but the meaning of their lives have shown more strength than those who had everything except that. The misconception is to confuse weakness with lack of faith in itself. You say I can't, when, in fact, it means I'm afraid. They are distinct realities. A person remains in bed because he has no energy. Another, because it fears to face the challenges that await it. The difference is abyssal. Imagine someone blindfolded, holding the key that opens the door of freedom. He dare not take the sail, not out of disability, but for fear of what he will see when the light invades his eyes. So many of us live with the key in hand, but paralyzed by the fear of using it. Modern studies only confirm what wise men have known for millennia. Daniel Kahneman, Nobel Prize in Economics, explained that our mind is programmed to choose the easiest way. We avoid pain, even when it is required for growth. We cling to the acquaintance, even if he destroys us. It is in this mechanism that the illusion of weakness is hidden. I met a man who, for years, repeated, "I'm too weak to start," until, one day, he confessed, "In fact, I'm afraid to discover the truth about myself." At that moment, everything changed. He understood that fear could be transformed into fuel, and supposed weakness disappeared. The truth is simple but heavy. You are not weak. Just fear listening to what could fall apart your illusions. However, it is exactly this confrontation that opens the doors to a new destination. A young disciple was terrified of entering a dark room. His friends moved him. "What's so scary there?" But every time the door opened, he retreated, making excuses. "Now it's not time. I'll do tomorrow." Day after day, his fear grew, until your master approached and said, "You do not fear darkness. You have fears of yourself. You are afraid to discover that there is more strength in you than you think. You are afraid to realize that when you enter, you will see that nothing prevents you except your own limitations." These words hit him deeply. The next night he entered the room and found only his own breath. The light has always been inside it. The story reveals the first lesson. Fear disappears when we find meaning. As long as there is no why that boosts us, we will only see darkness. But by understanding the purpose of its existence, fear loses power. As Jewish wisdom says, whoever finds meaning finds strength. Frankl proved that, even in the worst conditions, a goal in the heart transforms loose steps into one way. Modern psychologists reinforce, when the mind is fixed on fear, the body paralyzes. When focusing on the sense, fear loses strength. The purpose makes it possible what seemed impossible. A man was afraid to change his jobs. He repeated, "I won't handle it." But when your son was born, his sentence changed, "I need to handle it." And a force he had never felt emerged. His weakness was just an illusion. In fact, he had never heard the call of his own purpose. Here is the first truth. You are not Fracco. You are afraid to recognize that there is more in you than your fear allows you to admit. But when the meaning is found, darkness becomes space for the first step. Rarely does someone fall through an external blow. Generally, collapse inside, fed by thoughts that repeats himself, "I'm not ready. First, something needs to change around me. I'll wait for the right time." These sentences, although said in a low voice, are the ones that turn a strong person hostage to their own excuses. Imagine someone who, seeing a wall in front of him, immediately gives up. There is no way out. But in fact, that wall can be just a fence that can be circumvented. He does not try, does not explore, does not question. His mind has already decided on him. It's a dead end. Thus work the traps of thought. Jewish wisdom teaches, it is not the circumstances that impoverish a person, but his worldview. After all, poverty is not just a lack of money, it is a habit of believing that there are no choices. And when someone stops seeing alternatives, it is no longer strong. Kahneman reinforces, our mind is designed to save energy. We opted for easy, quick solutions, known standards, old fears. We avoid discomfort, even if it is the way for growth. Thus is the illusion of weakness not by the absence of strength, but by the mental laziness of seeking exits. I met a woman who, for years, said, I want to get out of this toxic relationship, but I can't. She expected the perfect moment, an external opportunity, a sign until one day she realized, I'm just postponing my own life. And it took the scary but genuine step. That day, his strength came back. The second truth is this. Weakness is often an illusion created by the mind itself. The pitfalls of thought keeps us trapped, even when the doors are open. Until we recognize this, fear will win. But in accepting this reality, the mind is no longer enemy and becomes ally. Strength is not born when obstacles disappear, but when we come to see them as they really are. Sometimes they are not walls, but fences. They are not dead-end alleys, but crossroads. And most of the time it is not weakness, it is just a habit of believing that we are not capable. In a family, there were two brothers. The elder always considered himself unable. I was not born for it. I'm not as smart as the others. So he avoided challenges, refused opportunities, and was afraid to try. Her life spent in circles, and every day she just confirmed her beliefs. The younger brother thought differently. I don't know, but I can learn. I can't now, but I can practice. He was wrong, was ashamed, failed, but always got up. Over time, what once seemed impossible became natural. Years later, the difference between them was huge. The eldest remained where he has always been, a shadow of his fears. The youngest became a confident person because he believed more in effort than on labels. This leads us to the third truth. Fate changes when we choose a growth mindset. Weakness does not come from the lack of talent, but from belief in an incapable label. However, if you decide to challenge this idea, everything can transform. When choosing the path of effort, the mistakes are no longer sentences and become masters. A millennial wisdom teaches the forte is not the one who overcomes others, but the one who overcomes himself. Winning means believing in the labels it carries. Modern thinkers confirm this. Carol Dweck has shown that people with growth mentality reach more than those who depend only on innate talent. Angela Duckworth called it grit, the combination of persistence and systemicity. The force comes to those who do not stop after the first stumble, but return once and again. I met a young man who dreamed of entering medical school, failed the exam twice. Your friends mocked, this is not for you, but he kept studying. In the third attempt, it passed. Today, he is a doctor and saves lives. His strength was not born of talent, but from stubbornness not to give up. The third truth is clear. You are not weak if you know how to learn. Weak are those who surrender before trying. Strong are the ones who choose to follow, even when the path is steep. It is said that a wise man, every day, was going to the courtyard and raised a stone. At first it was small. People laughed. What does this gesture change? But he persisted. Each month, it chose a slightly heavier stone. Years passed, and one day he raised a block that no one could move. For others, it was a miracle. For him, only the result of a habit. This story reveals the fourth truth. Strength is not born suddenly, but in small repeated steps day after day. Weakness is not a condemnation, but the result of the absence of rituals that strengthen us. Ancient wisdom teaches, everyday man writes the book of his life, and the lines he repeats become his character. Small habits build fate. Modern thinkers echo this idea. James Clear wrote that habits are the compound interest of life. Minimal actions, repeated thousands of times, turn everything. Charles Duhigg showed that a habit forms in 3 steps: sign, action, and reward. When you fix a positive cycle, it acts automatically, like an invisible ally. I saw this in a man who started with something simple. Every night, he wrote down 3 tasks for the next day, no more. In a year, his life had changed. It became more organized, more confident. His progress did not come from a magical secret, but from a habit that worked for him. Another example, a woman, tired of constant dissatisfaction, decided to record 3 things she was grateful before bed. At first it seemed an empty exercise, but in a month he noticed that he saw the good where he saw only darkness before. A year later, his character had become. It all started with a small ritual. The fourth truth is this. Force is not a miracle. It is born in minimal steps that become habits. Weakness is the lack of system. The strength is the repetition of what is right. In a city, he lived a merchant. His store was dear to the residents. His family lived comfortably, and he helped the needy, until a fire destroyed everything in one night. The neighbors murmured, he will crumble. It's the end. But the merchant replied, the fire burned the walls, not my hands. It took the goods, not my faith. The next day, it started again, first with a bench and some products on the market, then rented a small store. Years later, his business was more solid than before. Whenever they asked how the tragedy surpassed, he said, "It was not a tragedy. It was my school." This story reveals the fifth truth. The obstacle is the way. What we call misfortune is often the door to something new. Weakness is not in the blow that life gives, but to declare, "This is the end." The force is saying, "This is the beginning." Ancient wisdom warns, the blow is not scary, but the heart that gives up. Suffering may be inevitable, but it does not define fate. What defines is what you do with it. Modern thinkers reinforce this idea. Ryan Holiday recalls, the obstacle becomes the road. Stoics taught that challenges do not break, they forge character. Nassim Taleb wrote about antifragiles, those who get stronger with each blow. I met a man whose business went in a crisis. He lost almost everything, but instead of regretting, he said, "Now I know what not to do." That is, I learned. It started a new venture, more successful than the first. His strength was not born in prosperity, but in ruin. The fifth truth is this: obstacles do not weaken it. They open the door to a new destination. Each blow is a challenge, and if you look at it as a lesson, it becomes a step up. Frankel taught us the meaning gives strength to cross the darkness. Dweck reminded us growth begins where effort exists. Taleb said, the blows can make it antifragile if you accept them. Newport showed, attention, this is your biggest asset. Everything converges to a point, the strength. It is not legend, it is choice. Now you see, fear does not destroy it, just whispers. But when you respond with action, not excuses, your power fades. Remember how many times I said to yourself, I can't change for, I'm afraid, but I will do. This phrase rewrite destinations transforms the illusion of weakness into evidence of strength. You are not weak. He just forgot the strength of discipline and purpose. And both can be recovered today. Now, take a step, say a word, choose a truth, and that will be the beginning of a new story. Here, the original text asked for a call to action. If you want to keep it in the same style, it could be adapted to do this now. Write down a fear that you are ready to face. May this be your first movement to the force that has always inhabited you.